Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Adam Winters. I'm Joe Gould. And today we are going to be talking about Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. Woo, woo, woo.
A hell of a monster it is.
It's a hell of a something.
Hmm.
1974. So this is technically the seventh movie in the Hammer Films in terms of Frankenstein movies, but the sixth with Peter Cushing. We're skipping the horror of Frankenstein. We'll come back and do that next week.
Being the reboot. Although, several of these movies have been reboots to some degree or another.
Yeah. A lot of people were drawing parallels between this movie and The Revenge of Frankenstein.
Huh.
And how you could consider it a reboot of sorts.
I find more similarities between this and Frankenstein Created Woman, just as far as some of the tone and maybe the plot beats. I think the return of Frankenstein's gloved hands is something that we only see in these two movies. Makes me wonder if Peter Cushing had a real life condition he wanted to wear gloves on the set.
Yeah. So do you think this movie is supposed to be in continuity with Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed?
No, not at all. But
he did seem to survive a fire.
But again, he already had the burnt hands in Woman, so we don't know how he burnt those. If that was freezer burn or some other burn. Now, what I find, I just want to point this out, the little tidbit in this movie that most interests me is artistic. And that's when we have our new, I want to call him the new Hans, but Hans is in this movie, but a different guy. This is a Simon guy who's playing the role of Hans, and he owns the collected works of Frankenstein. I want that book. It's illustrated in woodcut.
No, it's an interesting movie. It's, in a lot of ways, it's not like any of the other Frankenstein movies in that he's not really bringing anyone back to life.
I guess that's correct. Nobody technically, the monster never dies.
Yeah, people do die, don't get me wrong, and he takes their body parts. But he's not creating life out of death. He's doing something different. I don't mean how to describe it.
Yeah, he's drugging them.
Improving. But...
Yes. So we have a little bit of a further... I'm trying to remember which movie we really dived into the drug aspect, and I guess that was Destroyed. Just really, I guess they're leaning into that 60s, 70s culture of drug abuse as a talking point. So Dr. Carl Victor, maybe we'll talk about that later, he's the medical attendant in an asylum, and he's giving all the special patients lots of drugs, whether they want to take it or not. And that's the key to how he's able to pick and choose some of the body parts that he wants for his creation.
Yes. The way they portray Frankenstein is he is... And now, in real life, actually, between the last movie and this one, he lost his wife. It was a very traumatic experience to him. Peter Cushing.
Yeah, I read about that.
So he was physically not in good shape for this movie. He did look very thin and very frail. I want to say he was 59 at the time, but he looks older than that. And that's probably the only time he's looked like older in these movies than in real life. Obviously, the wig.
And yet it creates a striking silhouette for this movie from the first appearance he makes, which I think is 18 minutes into the movie, when he's standing in the doorway in his top hat, his long cloak. It's quite an image that he creates there. Grave fellow.
So he helped create the wig, and then he hated it later on. Forget who I think he said it looked like... what was that? It was a random note I found. He thought it made him look like Helen Hayes, who...
I don't know who that
sounds like a woman. I don't know either, but it's obviously a woman's name. So you almost get Dr. Frankenstein running the retirement home as one of the patients. And, he's never really up to snuff in this movie. From a physical perspective. Like, it's like you're getting, like, the broken down Baron.
He does a lot of physical acting, though. I gotta defend it, even if he is old and decrepit. Just a lot of little things. The way he uses his cane.
Oh, yeah.
The way he puts
Yeah.
his hat on, the kind of looks
I think
he
you know
will
what I
give to the
mean.
camera.
I think you know what I mean. Like he's not. This is not A+ student Frankenstein. Like he
Hold on a
fails a
second
lot.
now. There's a scene in this movie where he jumps off a table to throw a bag over the creature's head. Is that a stunt
No, it's the
double or
best.
is that him doing it?
No, that's him. He did his own stunts. Even when
Okay.
he's riding a horse on a blue screen, he's doing his own stunts. I don't think many actors could have pulled that off. He somehow made that not look ridiculous. It might have helped that it looked like he was fighting an ape, but you know. So
Well, I
let's
think
talk about
most
the
people
monster.
remember the creature in this above everything else, as far as
Yeah,
Frankenstein movies go.
the creature. Where to start? Other than we should start at the creature is Darth Vader.
Yes, the before anybody else was hired, there was a guy in the suit, and that guy was David Prowse.
Yeah, and he actually starred in as the creature in the previous movie, which we haven't reviewed yet. So he is he's new to us, very familiar
He's
to our hearts,
he's not a
but
gorilla in the previous movie though.
I would imagine not. And he is the only actor in the Hammer films, at least, to play Frankenstein's creature or monster more than once. So he played the creature for two different Frankensteins.
That's true, because Christopher Lee only did one, and then the rest of the guys are kind of forgettable. And then huh?
Well, there's
Yeah.
debate whether you could even call some of them creatures, I suppose.
Right, and
But
Frankenstein created woman. That's one of those odd balls.
but what about that suit? So
You
apparently
know,
this is a man. I don't really understand what they're getting at here.
because I remember you made a comment to me that Frankenstein created King Kong, but he was supposed to already look like that before all this happened, and he got experimented on.
So this for those who haven't watched it, the creature, he's wearing sweatpants. So it's a little unclear what he
Very
looks
hot.
like from the waist down. But he's got like basically if a gorilla had its hair thinning and was kind of splotchy, maybe it had fleas, and didn't have a good coat. Like those mangled dogs that you see in the commercials with Sarah McLachlan.
Arms of the Angel, right? We got Angel in this movie. Angel
yeah.
Sarah.
So you got this. They're saying he's muscular, not a lot of definition. But imagine King Kong, 6 feet tall, thinning hair, hadn't brushed his teeth in a while. But it does feel like a rubber suit because when he talks, his mouth doesn't move.
Yeah, I noticed that. That was a little bit unfortunate, but his mouth does move in other sequences, but not initially. It made me wonder if that was an early dub decision.
Well, even then, it doesn't move much, and I think they have to film it in such a way with the lighting that they're trying to cover up. I think the mouth underneath the mouth.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It gives the whole thing a plasticky appearance that they really didn't have to settle for.
Yeah. So apparently, Darth Vader did appreciate that it only took about 30 minutes to get in costume. So if you can be in a gorilla suit in 30 minutes, I see that as a win. I guess in the last movie, it had taken a couple of hours to get ready for the makeup. So I'm expecting a better looking monster in the next film.
He's a little bit more traditional, but yeah, that surprises me if the previous film took more time than this Neolithic gorilla suit. Huh, well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a zipper in there we could look for. Yeah.
Covered by the hair.
Yeah.
I like the set design in this movie. I think the exterior shots are a model.
At least some of them were. Yeah.
Very Toho-esque.
Towards the end, I don't know if they had the model out in the beginning when it was more the daytime scenes, but definitely towards the end, there was some models out there. Yeah, very low budget movie. It had the same budget, or pretty close to it, as the first movie they did, The Curse of Frankenstein in 1957. And this is in 1974.
It has a little bit better cinematography. I mean, I like the original, but it makes it feel like these sets are bigger than they probably are. The tunnels in the asylum, the different rooms, even though I'm sure they just had one room, they just shot it was different. What's the word I'm looking for? Patience? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I like the set. You could tell it wasn't very big overall because there wasn't a lot of the pieces. Like it only takes place in the asylum, and there's like one hallway and a couple of jail cell room looking things, which they may have just used for all the characters and changed out the props. Who knows? But not a lot of outside scenes. You have a graveyard, but it's not a very big surface area.
The laboratory's fun. Got some artwork in it.
Yeah,
Got a little bit of a wheel that they don't really use in this one because they. Hey, do they ever animate anything with electricity? I don't think they do in this movie.
I mean, they didn't bring anything to life.
They got yeah. I mean, I guess you could say they jumpstart the brain, but eh.
Well, that scene's infamous for other reasons. But so, which version of this did you watch? What was your?
I didn't know there were multiple versions. I only own it digitally, and I'm using primarily the Voodoo Fandango copy.
Okay, so I have the DVD that was released here in 2003 by Paramount. Shout Factory did put out a Blu-ray a few years ago, which looks much better. But the DVD cost me $7, and the Blu-ray was gonna be like $35. And not knowing if I was gonna like the movie, I decided to go with this one, and then maybe down the road upgrade. I am disappointed in this. So I'm apparently just getting old. So special features are supposed to include a commentary by actress Madeline Smith, actor David Prowse, and genre historian Jonathan Southcott. And I was interested in that, but I couldn't figure out how to listen to it. It's one of the old school.
Is it not hiding on the audio tracks?
I couldn't get to the audio tracks. It had play and scene selection.
But
and like,
does your DVD remote have an audio button?
I don't know. I haven't run into this issue in a long time. You remember back in the day on the DVDs where you would have like they would consider like the commentaries Easter eggs. And you had to like push in a funny direction, up, down, left, right.
I remember those days.
But I couldn't figure out how to get to the commentary. I'd like to listen to Darth Vader, but you know.
Oh, no doubt.
But yeah. But anyways, so what I did find out in my research of trying to figure out how to get to the commentary was that I was watching the American version, and there is a British version included almost as a bonus feature on the Shout Factory Blu-ray. And there's about a 6 minutes difference in runtime.
Longer?
And basically, they took some of the gore out.
Oh, the British censored it more?
No, the American.
Oh.
So I got So doing a quick little scan here. The main thing, this will tell me what you watched. So in the operation where they're putting on the hands, and Simon's having a hard time getting the artery.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes.
So in your version, did Frankenstein assist by using his mouth to grab the artery? Okay. Then we watched the American version.
Oh, well, that makes sense. It's probably the only one legally for sale on the digital Paramount platforms. Because mine had the Paramount logo. Does the British version have the Paramount Gulf Western?
Let me look at my notes here. All right. So, yes, it looks like Paramount's the US. And then, I don't know if it's a words or letters, but AVCO Embassy Pictures, Avco. They look like they're the distributor for the UK. But, so yeah, it's like, as it describes it on movie-censorship.com, a part of the operation scene was cut out. Simon cannot hold the artery. Frankenstein cannot help him because of his hand injury, and instead has the idea to fixate the artery with his mouth.
Oh,
that's 3 seconds.
His teeth, or what? What now?
I think he can't get a hold of it. So I don't know. and then after that, Frankenstein lets go of the artery and rinses out his mouth. And there's also
an eye wash station or something. What's he used?
I don't know. I'd be using some strong alcohol, but
that brandy he took from Herr Adolf.
Yeah. See here, when they're fixing the eyes, there was a close-up shot of the eyes toward the beginning, which was cut short, 8 seconds worth.
All right.
For the most part, they're just not lingering on the scenes as long. It's like when the throat's cut. I think they hold on the visual for maybe 3 seconds in the UK version, whereas we just get a little piece of it. I guess it would put in, again, you wouldn't get this, But back in the '90s, they would air like Friday the 13th and Jason or Elm Street movies on a cable, but they would edit it for television, so not just for nudity or language, but they would also cut the scene short, or maybe stop it right before it happens. This is
Right.
more like that. So I don't know why they did. I mean, nothing that I just described, other than being a little ridiculous, is like really that big of a deal. But
Yeah, 1974, you kind of wonder what they would have been worried about. I guess there was no such thing as PG-13, so it would have been the question of whether it's going to be rated PG or R. Would have been the...
Well, it would have been... Oh, it's definitely an R, but I think R or...
You mean this movie was rated R?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So it probably wouldn't... They probably just wouldn't rate it. I don't think it would have gotten an X, but it would have just been kind of the unrated version. They did more... I mean... It probably is on point with what they were doing from the horror film perspective in terms of the violence. I know a lot of those movies would get director cuts, released later on, so they kept the footage, but they just, 15 years later they used it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the symbolism with it? Like, did you see symbolism with the patients?
Well, I'm going to forget the names, but you have an older man who believes he's both God and his regular self, and then
Yes.
you have the craftsman who no longer is making anything else with his hands, presumably because he's so drugged up. But Frankenstein says his brain just atrophied suddenly. You've got the professor, who's really good at mathematics and loves music on his violin. But Frankenstein says he's both tone deaf and he's not able to appreciate the mathematics, which the professor describes as poetry. And Dr. Victor, when questioned by Simon about the professor, continually says to remind him he attacked director Herr Adolf Klaus, or whatever his name is. And then there's a woman who I don't know that is named, but she chuckles a lot. So what pieces do I need to put together here for this?
Well, there was a lot of people suggesting that there was symbolism and that they represented different parts of Baron Frankenstein himself. I don't know about the chuckling old lady.
He does chuckle more in this movie than all the other ones. He laughs at a joke Simon tells about being able to see.
He did. That was a funny scene.
No, I get the whole... He's not the first or the last to believe himself to be God. And then you have the line about Simon declaring him Frankenstein, creator of man, and Victor really... he needed that. That's what he needed to hear. So I don't know about the rest of them, though, on the professor and the craftsman, and I'm probably leaving one other guy out.
Well, he is a genius mathematician who is tone deaf in certain ways, and he's a sculptor of a surgeon who can't use his hands anymore.
Well, that's pretty good. I would not have put together the craftsman who can no longer use his hands. That is pretty good observation.
Now, I don't know if these were intentional, but I do think they line up.
They do.
Now, I don't like the crazy old woman. Towards the end, he did look a little senile, but
And then I guess, of course, the Neolithic man is just animal.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Animal instinct, the insatiable. Maybe that you could say it's the insatiable desire to keep going, which he can't quit. His experiments.
I wish they had explained why he looked like he did.
Oh yeah,
because it's an insane asylum.
Yeah,
but it doesn't seem to be that he was put there for that reason. Well, maybe he was. I don't know. They never really talked about. But they said, I guess he was a bad person. He killed people with glass when he got angry.
There is a good line of dialogue that Peter Cushing delivers fairly early. Their crimes are not near as evident as their condition or their mental troubles. Yeah. So, it's unclear exactly what crimes any given person would have committed to get in there. Except for Victor and Simon, oddly enough.
Yeah. What'd you think of Simon? I was underwhelmed.
Well, he's the new Hans, right? He's an aspiring doctor who's a fanboy, and he's read all of Frankenstein's stuff. I got nothing against it. I just think he's playing the part that we've seen before. They do give him more of a conscience than Frankenstein, but it's not clear if that's a
Why?
conscience that will ultimately win out, because he is just as curious as Victor is to bring these experiments to life and publish them and get renowned and all that.
Yeah, he has a babyface turn midway through the movie, but I'm not convinced it's like a pure-hearted babyface turn as much as he just likes the girl, who he did kiss.
So, is she truly mute, or does she just choose not to speak? Mute versus, as they say, she doesn't want to pay taxes.
No, I think she's mute because she goes mute again at the end, you can tell, with the third shock.
Okay, yeah, I hadn't thought about that much. When she
When she
does, she
sees the
says
monster
several
getting
words to
disemboweled.
Simon.
Yeah, so I believe so for people who haven't watched. So she's not talking in the movie, and about halfway, maybe halfway through, maybe a little later, we find out that the reason that she doesn't speak is that she had a experienced a shocking situation when her father tried to rape her. And then shortly thereafter, finding out this information, Simon's trying to kill the monster. I think this is a scene. And the monster turns the table, so to speak, and is about to kill him. And she walks in and screams. It gets the monster's attention, who likes her. And that shocking situation seems to have fixed her. But then at the end of the movie, when the monster is torn apart and disemboweled by a mob of crazy people, she seems to lose her voice again.
Huh.
I noticed that it made it like a scream face, but nothing came out. So I think she's just very prone to flip-flopping in that manner.
That's probably a little bit not how it works for people who have gone mute because of trauma responses or whatever, but hey, whatever.
I think it is something that happens with little girls, and they never really do say how old she was when it happened, or children. But
then to happen again, to get fixed and then suddenly happen again as an adult.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to buy what they're selling and all that. But yeah, I thought the supporting cast, other than the crazy people were good.
They were indeed.
But Simon and the girl, I just felt like in terms of supporting cast, significantly underwhelming. Maybe they just ran out of budget. I'm not sure how much of the budget Peter Cushing took. But
now the actress who plays Sarah is another Bond girl. I had to look that up. I forget which movie because I haven't seen the Bond movies, but
yeah, I read
you got to at least give her credit for her physical acting with only maybe 5 lines of dialogue in the movie.
Well, I didn't think she was bad, but just like
part
didn't do anything to elevate.
Yeah, okay.
Which, Simon didn't do anything to elevate either, so, I guess that's why they attracted to each other. So I think she liked Darth Vader more than him.
Well, the professor. And then the professor's brain is in the Neolithic body.
Yeah, so what do you think? They got a little metaphysical there. They couldn't decide if the brain was rejecting the body, or the body rejecting the brain. And I think they ultimately decided that the body was changing the brain. Like the essence of the evil guy was not in the brain, but somewhere in the body, and it was like infecting the brain, so to speak.
That's an interesting
Not sure that's
idea,
how that works, but
I'm sure Frankenstein movies that came after this one probably played into that a little more. I guess it's not quite the nature versus nurture debate, but
so when's Frankenstein gonna start getting smart? And so if you can't figure out where the soul or the essence is, you're gonna get a new brain. Go ahead and take their heart too. Maybe even a kidney, maybe a liver, a lung.
Well,
I mean, just whatever you can, harvest.
I would argue that it would be risky in Victor's situation because he needs a heart that can clearly support the blood flow needs of a huge body like that. And Professor was described as a sweet little old man, something like that. So it would be a bad fit to put his heart in that massive body.
Well, he picked that massive body in the first place. That was a first fail. But,
You do wonder why he chose that, other than he liked its moxie. He just wouldn't give up. Maybe it's like Wolverine, because, you gotta find a body that can withstand all the experiments. So that's what he settled on. A monster who refused to die.
I guess. I mean, it's the first monster that's ever looked better after he got his head brain switched, though. Got a haircut.
Well, what they really improved on is when they put the eyeballs in him. And I forgot who they got the eyeballs from. Looked less plastic.
They got the eyeballs. They didn't explain, but wasn't that the guy that the coffin lid fell off of?
That was the hands that got cut off.
Yeah, that's the hands. Yeah, he had a collection of eyeballs. I think he'd been collecting them for a while, and I think he was just waiting to get the new brain in the guy to put the eyeballs in.
That was a pretty devious scene where Simon comes to Victor to tell him that the professor has hanged himself. And even before it happened, said, "You're not going to find a genius's brain in here, except perhaps the professor. But he could live another 10 years.
Yeah, I thought the plot twist might be that Simon did it in order to facilitate it, but that's not how they went.
So Frankenstein says he waits about 7 seconds, and he says, "You don't think I'd kill him, do you? I'm no murderer."
I mean, all 110 pounds of him, he's not. But yeah, I kind of wonder, they're kind of going two ways here. So do you think Frankenstein actively kills anyone in this movie, or do you think he passively plays it where it happens, and then he takes the parts in order to, relieve his conscience, so to speak?
I don't think he's worried about his conscience. I think he's just trying to stay consistent. He's trying to stay consistent with something. I don't see any evidence that he actively murders anybody in this movie. He's far too manipulative to just kill anybody outright. At least at this point.
I think he views himself as a true doctor.
Yeah.
And, I don't think he would be... I don't know that I don't know. He's definitely not a good guy in this movie.
The most devious thing, I think, is when he and Simon hash it out a little bit. When the professor has hanged himself, and then after they do the brain transplant, Simon finds a handwritten note in Victor's handwriting that the professor is incurable. And he realizes Frankenstein left this for him to clearly see. And Frankenstein again pulls that card of he was incurable. He really was. Regardless of the ethics of letting the patient see that. And he said, "Simon, do you think you could have cured him? If so, let me know." And then, that's the second time he plays that card about, you think he's a helpless little old man. He's violent. And then we find out in the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie, the reason why the professor got violent one time after he got admitted to the asylum for some kind of nervous disorder.
And it was?
It was the professor learned that Herr Adolf had attempted to rape Sarah, the person he admired the most in that facility. And he took the opportunity, apparently off screen, to give that guy the business.
Yep. No, they do tie things together pretty nicely. I wouldn't say there's tons of plot holes, other than just things you would have liked to know on the why or the what. Mostly around the monster from hell, but
I don't know if that's the best title for the movie or the monster, because they thought it would sell, I suppose.
Most of these movies, they tie in a piece of dialogue to it, and I can't recall if this one does. I missed it if they did it. Wouldn't surprise me if I missed it.
Other than the Matthew 18 reference, when the man who thinks he's God he hears the wailing of the creature, and he references wailing and gnashing of teeth being the reference to hell.
Yeah. But I tell you what, they use those inmates great. Like they
It's good
were.
framing devices. Yeah,
It was. I don't know if they gave them shots before, not of medicine, but of other things, to get them into character or what. They
they're
were into
zoomed
them.
in.
They
The
were into it.
cinematography is zoomed in just right. It's lit very well.
Yeah.
It feels like Arkham Asylum, doesn't it?
I liked a lot of this movie. I liked a lot of it. So how would you rank the Peter Cushing Frankenstein films?
It's a tough one. I guess we got 6 of them, right?
Yeah, so I'll give you the dates and the names.
Well,
And if we don't
I
remember any of the
remember them,
plots,
but
we can refresh.
I will tell you, I would put them into 2 tiers, top 3 and bottom 3, and I would have to evaluate each one individually on things they do well and things I wish they did different. So in the top tier, I'm going to put the original, I'm going to put Revenge, and I'm going to put this one. And the other 3 go in the bottom tier.
Okay. So my ranking is 1959 Curse of Frankenstein, the original. And then 58's Revenge of Frankenstein. And then I would put The Evil of Frankenstein, 64, in the third spot.
Woo! All right.
And well, I think 3, 4, and 5 are all very similar in the quality level. So I thought long and hard about that. And then I would put this one. And then I would go Created Woman, Must Be Destroyed. So they're mostly in order. I think there was a slow decline from the beginning with a little bit of an uptick for this one. So instead of being the worst film, this one ends up being middle ground. So I don't think we fundamentally disagree that much. I think Evil of Frankenstein did enough well, and the other ones did enough bad that it kind of evens out.
Maybe we can rank them more thoroughly when we do the reboot. But
see, I mean, the thing Evil Frankenstein had was it tried to it was still trying to be a old school Hammer film and do something different.
I don't hate it, but I rank it below probably every movie we've seen.
I didn't like the last one. The more I think about it,
that's the struggle. I love the setup.
Created Woman, I liked aspects of. I think Evil, Woman, Destroyed, and Monster from Hell are all basically the same overall quality. So I'm trying to fine tune it down pretty narrow. But I think there's a steep decline after the first 2 films.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. They got away from the source material. They got to do one original film that built upon that. And then they had to make do without any kind of source material they could go back. I mean, they certainly could have gone back to the books or the various editions, but they didn't. I don't quite understand the frequent use of the names Hans and Carl, neither one of which ever appeared in any book version that I know of, but they're in all but the first one, Curse of Frankenstein. Pretty sure.
Yes. Yeah. I think maybe I like The Evil of Frankenstein a little more than I should, just because I don't view them. That's the movie where they had the access to the Universal stuff.
Yeah.
And I think they were trying to pay tribute to it and didn't necessarily come across that way. So maybe I'm reading their intentions into it a little bit more than I should. But it fell flat. If they just kept doing their own thing, I think it could have been a true top 3 movie, in terms of the original trilogy, so to speak.
It had good cinematography, and again, we referenced the cinematographer from the earlier films was the director on that. The jumping off part of the plot is just so odd, bringing in the carnival hypnotist to animate the monster.
I agree. That's why it's not a very good film in the big scheme of things. But you did get to see the monster go to town and steal some stuff and kill people.
Not a great kill, but yeah,
it's kid gloves, but he wasn't overly harsh with his victims. He chewed gently. But, like I said, I would like to put Created Woman above both of them. But it was, I don't know.
It crosses the line into serial killer type of movie instead of monster movie.
Yeah, I think it's. Let's take the first two out of the equation. It's probably the best film among the other last four. But it's not as much a horror movie. It's more like a psychological thriller. A true made-for-TV version of a Frankenstein movie. I'm curious to see where I would put horror of Frankenstein.
It's got a little bit more comedy in it, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I'm either going to really hate it because it doesn't have Peter Cushing, or I'm going to consider it refreshing and like it. I don't know. We'll find out.
It's got David Prowse in it. Do you think he and Lou Ferrigno were buddies since they were bodybuilders back in the day?
I don't know.
He was upset when he didn't get to have a face cameo in Return of the Jedi, and he kind of burned all his George Lucas bridges. But if you look at younger photos of him, I think in Britain he was known as something of a minor celebrity. He was like the Green Crossing Man. It was a safety commercial, but he looks like young Hayden Christensen from who played Anakin Skywalker in the prequel films. So it's ironic if they'd have filmed him in the suit, he would have been a very believable older version of Anakin Skywalker, as opposed to the actor they replaced him with, Sebastian Shaw, who then got replaced by a CGI Anakin Skywalker.
It all comes full circle. That's what they need to do with horror Frankenstein. They need to put CGI Peter Cushing on top of Frankenstein.
Or artificial intelligence CGI. Huh.
Yeah. So is there any part of this movie that we didn't cover in some way that seems important?
Okay, so the grave robber. I believe his name is Ernest in this movie. That takes us back to Revenge when you compared the janitor with Ernest P. Worrell, Jim Varney.
What would this movie be if it was an Ernest movie?
Oh, I wish it was an Ernest movie. Ernest and the Monster from Hell.
Ernest, there's a clever title in there somewhere.
Ernest P. Worrell got his start as a mad scientist creation as well. Did you know that?
I think I did in the past. I can't recall.
Dr. something or other. He was on his TV show. But there's sort of a loose backstory to Ernest that the Mad Doctor created several Ernest P. Worrells, which could be taken as a reason why all the Ernest movies are set in different places and have their own timelines.
Well, that's kind of like Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah, so there's your link. Ernest P. Worrell and Frankenstein. Closer than you think.
They were the prototypes for the multiverse. What do you know?
Indeed.
Nothing really remarkable in the movie. Nothing inherently, ridiculously bad, other than the weird suit for the monster.
I like the scene where they're doing the brain transplant, and for whatever reason, the camera focuses on the feet of Cushing as he drops the old brain into the
So we got to talk about
pan.
That. That's the best scene in the whole movie. The best scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they're removing the monster's brain. Now, I will say, maybe if we had the thing where Peter Cushing was biting the artery, that might have won. So Peter Cushing is taking out the brain. He puts it... Now, we should set this up by saying he had just kind of worked with Simon in removing the good brain from the brilliant guy. The professor. And he was very, very careful and took great care of this brain, and ever so, gingerly or gently plopped it in the little device to hold it with the liquid, and it kind of gently floated to the bottom. So then he pulls out the brain that he doesn't need. There's some symbolism here, I think. And they just rip the thing out. And then they put it in this
floor
bucket.
Pan.
Yeah, floor
Vomit
pan. Piss pan. And and then it falls off into the floor, and then
he steps on it.
they're just showing his feet. He steps on it and it slips in the ooze and the goo and kicks it and throws a little temper tantrum with his feet, a little tap dance. And it's just like they don't do anything with it. I really do think they're just showing how he does not value certain things that aren't useful to him. But it was hilarious. I thought, man, Frankenstein, like, it would have been awesome if they had him fall on his ass. But
it's all
they
one
didn't.
shot. First time I thought it was a blooper they left in the film because it just handled
Might
it
have
so
been.
well. But I wouldn't think the camera would have lingered down there for so long unless that was just the way it worked.
It would be awesome if it was a blooper they got left in. And
it's hard to fall or stumble convincingly. It's harder to do that than just actually almost slip.
I think that's the one thing that's a real shame that we don't have. Not the slipping thing. But that would be the perfect thing you would want to hear Peter Cushing on commentary.
Yep.
We don't have that for any of these movies, and it's just a real shame.
It's a shame. And I guess 3 years away from Star Wars at this point for both him and David Prowse before it hits theaters anyway. Yeah.
That guy, if you count the computer imaging from what movie was it?
Rogue One.
So if you count that, this guy had a pretty lengthy career. He was lengthy anyways, but
yeah, I saw the credit done with the estate of Peter Cushing, or with permission to do that. Gee, it makes me wonder how many more Star Wars movies he's going to be in. Beyond the Grave, reanimated by a CGI
I haven't
AI
seen the
artist.
new series. I haven't seen the new series, but it seems to be universally hated. So Disney needs to. They may need to outsource Star Wars to someone who actually understands what's going on with it. I'm not even a huge Star Wars guy. I'm really not. But they're losing all the devoted.
Well, yeah. A lot of franchises are like that. And that's nothing to say you can't have different generations that grow up with their own memories of stuff, but it's definitely come a long way from the essence of what the original movies were trying to be, which were, in a lot of ways, throwbacks to older stuff, but reimagined as something more grandiose. And maybe you could say that about these Frankenstein movies are trying to do that, but the fact they reboot it every time means they're not super committed to telling any kind of epic. They just want to do new twists on the same formula, which that's Frankenstein's MO anyway.
Yeah, and I think it works for Frankenstein. I think it works for Ernest. It probably works for Star Trek. But with Star Wars, not Star Trek. I think with Star Wars, though, there is that central narrative about the Skywalkers. I think it just seems like some of the people, even in interviews, they basically say they'll give the wrong narrative, like they haven't actually seen the movies. But like if you're in charge of a movie and you haven't seen the previous ones, and the whole big thing about the Star Wars universe is that they're all interconnected. Well, it's like that's just a recipe for disaster right there.
Well, and the fact they disregarded the whole expanded universe, the books, the comics, for 3 decades of that.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But
that was part of the lore. That was the whole idea of Wikipedia. When you think of the fan wiki, Star Wars gave us the concept of a fan-based wiki. I really think that's important too.
I agree with that, but the reason Marvel's kind of fallen apart in the TV land is because they've made too much. So you can't, you need it to be small enough that's canon that it's reasonable to expect your audience to have seen them all, or to go back and watch them.
And it's nice to have both the movies and the TV shows, but when you start making one a prerequisite to fully enjoying the other, you really, really start to push your goodwill with the audiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, in order to appreciate the next Godzilla film, you have to follow the Netflix show, or the how many Godzilla shows are there right now? iTunes, Netflix.
There's one on iTunes which I got I don't think it's as official as I thought it was. I haven't watched it yet. Monarch. But my understanding is that it's not a required viewing for the movies. I take it as similar to the original vision for Agents of Shield.
That
It
one
was like
worked okay,
supplemental,
and they felt a lot
yeah,
of freedom
supplemental
to disregard.
material, but not required.
And the movies always felt free to disregard and ignore whenever they went forward. Probably upset the showrunners, but the
Well,
show
I don't
had to
even know
work
how they
around
could.
the movies.
Yeah, which I mean, just the way those things get released, I don't know how you could fix that problem. But again, it's
TV films a lot
supplemental,
faster
not
than
required.
movies do. You got to remember that too.
Yeah. Or well, I mean, you got to think. If they could tell the show that they were going to be doing a certain thing. Well, if then they could do shows about it. But then if they change their mind, even before the show gets released, well, it's already been filmed.
Yep.
So, I do think it's a shame we never got the Frankenstein TV series.
I've not seen that pilot yet. I do want to see the pilot. And that was what was the prototype? Was that Revenge or Evil?
I don't remember. They all could have been. That's the thing. All these movies are so low budget; they could have been takes off a TV series. Let's see here. I got my pile of movies here. It wasn't Frankenstein Created Woman, was it?
No, I didn't think so. I thought
Well,
it
the
was
reason
either Evil or probably Evil of Frankenstein.
yeah, I think it would have had to have been
Frozen in the ice and all that.
because there was because Curse came out in 57, Revenge in 58. Then you had a 6-year gap to Evil, and that's
Yeah.
where that's where it was. Yeah. All right. Cool. You got any final thoughts on this monstrosity of the movie?
Nothing creative that I can think of.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and we just reviewed Ernest Scared Stupid,
That's a
aka
classic.
Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. Thanks
Love
everybody.
those trolls.